First things first, you're going to want to go on to your little search bar in the effects and type in glow scan. Now go ahead and add it and just copy the settings that I'm doing. I'm going to turn the threshold down all the way for the first keyframe, and on the second one I'm just going to slide it until you don't see it anymore after it comes through to the very end. You can do whatever graph you prefer. I think I did a subtle graph. I made this like a week ago, so honestly I don't remember. But yeah, I think you should use that graph right there. I feel like I adjusted it a little bit during the end, so just do the one that I just did right there because that's the only one that looks nice in my opinion. Also, I'm sorry for not doing voiceovers. I had a cold, but I am back to normal now, so yeah. Sorry if my voice is still a little bit, I don't know, kind of deep. I'm sorry about that. Anyways, yeah. This next one is a blur with exposure, so go ahead and go on to the blur category in your effects and select inner blur. Now you guys can do whatever settings you want. These are just personally my settings. I use these when I'm making like a simplistic TikTok velocity edit, or even just like if I'm running out of ideas for transitions. I highly recommend doing the graph that I'm doing because it looks a lot better than adding no graph. Adding no graph makes it look stiff. So now go on to color and light and select exposure and gamma, and go ahead and turn the exposure up to whatever you feel like you want. I just turned it up to 1.00, and then I just set it back to its default. You don't have to add on a graph to exposure if you don't want to. It's actually kind of recommended that you don't, but that's just my opinion. And yeah, this is what it should look like. This next one is also a blur, but with linear streaks. So go ahead and go on to blur, select box blur, and just add 2 keyframes, and you can adjust the strength to whatever you want. I just add 1 key from the beginning, 1 at the end, set it back to its default. You can copy my graph if you want, or you can do your own graph. Now what I do is I go ahead, and after I get my graph the way that I like it to look, I go ahead and I add on linear streaks. Now I don't know why I'm taking forever to do that. Apparently I'm still adjusting the graph. Okay. Let's see. Okay, now I add on linear streaks in the blur category. And I changed the strength down to 3, and I also, if you want, you could change the angle. I don't think I was a fan of the angle, so I think I changed it. Yeah, but, yeah. So I adjusted the angle, and now I'm just going to add a graph onto my strength. You should probably do a really subtle graph, especially if you're just doing, like, the strength of 3, just so, you know what I mean? I add this because it kind of adds a little bit of a, like, exposure effect without actually using exposure. I think I added it on anyways because I wanted it a little bit brighter, but it's honestly just your preference and what you want it to look like. I also changed the exposure back to 1.00 again. That's kind of like the default you should do unless it's too bright for you. And yeah. This next one is honestly a favorite of mine to use on After Effects as well. It is a saturation exposure like fade. So you want to go on color and light and select saturation and vibrance. I turned mine down all the way for the first keyframe, and then on the second keyframe at the very end I just turn it back up to what the original photo was. Unless you want it to be a little bit more vibrant, I think I did like 3.5 to make it a little bit more vibrant than the actual photo. And then I just did a graph. I kind of recommend a fast graph if your photo's long, that way it doesn't seem like the saturation is dragging on. Then I went on to color and light, and then I added on exposure and gamma. And I changed the exposure obviously to 1 again like I usually do. And I just did the same graph I've been doing for it. And yeah, this is the saturation exposure fade. This last effect is Luma key, so you're gonna want to have your photo set up like this. Also, this is a paid transition. Go on to add effect, go on to matte mask and key, and select Luma key. Now, follow my settings. I think you want to go to the high category, and you want to add 1 keyframe at the beginning and 1 at the end. And on the first one at the beginning, change the high all the way down to the bottom, so it's just revealing your first photo that's underneath. And on your second keyframe, change it all the way to the maximum high. And then you can adjust your graph to whatever you'd like. If you want it to go fast, if you want it to go slow, once again, your preference. Mid graphs would probably be okay on this, I would say. So yeah. Right now I'm just adding on exposure. Once again, we've done this a million times in this tutorial, so just do your settings or do my settings, whatever ones you want, honestly, your preference. And yeah.